licensed attorney, award-winning writer, businessman, entrepreneur, and other over-the-top crap. It's Life and Law with Eugene Cisco Jr.
And good morning, Eugene Cisco here at Life and Law, and again I'm flying solo today, and we're going to talk about divorce this morning, and it's not really an in-depth discussion on divorce, and you'll see some of those later on in my channel, and we'll kind of get into the nitty-gritty and each of the components of a divorce. But today I want to kind of talk about the basics and the beginnings of a divorce. And I guess I've titled this one, What You Can Expect When You're Expecting a Divorce. So let's talk about divorce in general first. And what is a divorce? And of course, obviously, it's a breakup or it's a dissolution of a partnership, to be honest. Because if you look at a marriage as a partnership, and what we are doing through a divorce is kind of dissolving it. We're telling the court, a judge, that this union, this partnership, whether it's made up of a man or a woman or a same-sex partnership, is no longer viable, and that the two of you have decided that you can no longer get along. So what you're asking the court to do, if you can't do it yourself, is to help. You're asking for the court and your attorneys. Hopefully, if you go to court, you should get a lawyer. It's not mandatory, but you should. It'll save you a lot of time and money to get a lawyer. But what you're asking the court to do is to help you break up this partnership. Now, unlike a partnership, a true business relationship, most business relationships have operating agreements. And within those operating agreements are specific guidelines and things that you do when you break up. There's a specific way to get rid of assets and distribute debt and divide up property. You see that a lot in small business. But a divorce is kind of like a small business. You're creating something, you're producing things, you're producing income. In a lot of cases, you're producing children. But there is no, unless you have a prenuptial agreement, which is done before the marriage, which sets out a lot of things like how to divide assets and who gets what whenever you split up. Most marriages aren't like that. Overwhelmingly, most marriages, people just get together, they decide to get married, and then they start building a life together. So if this is a situation that I'm talking about, that we are getting a divorce, that you're thinking about getting a divorce, and you have no prenuptial agreement, there's no structure in place. There's no structure in place for you and your mate to figure things out. No roadmap. So you're kind of doing it on the fly. You're doing it by the seat of your pants. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable. Fumbling around in the dark is not fun. So that's kind of why if you are getting a divorce and you're contemplating getting a divorce, the first thing you want to do is get you an attorney, but we'll talk about that just in a second. So there are divorces that are agreed upon. We call them no-fault divorces. There are, every state, I believe, in the United States offers no-fault divorces. And a lot of times you can get those papers, and you can go online at your local clerk's office and find out the procedure and the usually a packet of information, or you can go personally to the clerk's office in the county in which you live, and they will assist you. At least most of the time, what I've observed is they'll assist you and at least give you the paperwork that you need in order to file the divorce or the complaint or the petition. Different jurisdictions call them different things. We call them the petition in a lot of the places that I practice. So there's a no-fault divorce that you can do yourself. People call them the do-it-yourself divorce. And then there's also the fault divorce. Well, okay, back up a little bit. The do-it-yourself divorce is something you can do yourself. However, no fault you still should get an attorney, and you can get an attorney. A no-fault divorce just means that you are not blaming the other party, although there may be plenty of blame to go around. I mean, I see it all the time. Even though it's a no-fault divorce, one party is almost always pissed off at the other party for some reason or another. But no fault just implies that everybody has agreed that shit has gone south and that we need to do something about it, and we're going to split. So that's typically what a no fault is. You're not pointing a finger legally and trying to claim the other party did something. Although, again, in the complaint or in your petition that your attorney drafts, they might put something in there. You might want them to put something in there. But generally, no fault just says to the court that we have irreconcilable differences, that we just can't get along, damn it, and we want to get out of here. So that's really what a no-fault divorce is. Now, there are fault divorces. About 2/3 of the states in the country allow for fault. Now, what that means is that you have to allege certain things for fault. You can allege, for example, infidelity. Adultery is the common law term for it. You can allege deceit, wrongdoing, abuse. There's a lot of things you can do to allege cruelty, I believe is one of the terms. It's the term of art, the legal term that they call. You can allege those things, and a lot of times when you allege fault, it's a different kind of legal meaning. So if you are in a state that allows you to allege fault, that can increase the amount of money that you get through the court system. It can also help with the division of property. If you prove it, it's one thing to allege those kind of things, and it's another thing to prove it. So, but if you are successful in proving that, and I suggest if that's something you're going to do, you will need and should get a lawyer to help you navigate the evidence and all those things. So if you prove that, a judge is likely to increase your award, the amount of maintenance or that you're going to receive. So those are the two basic types of divorce. There's a no fault, and then there's a fault. And within the no fault, there's one where you can go to the courthouse and you don't need a lawyer. That's not really a no fault. That's just a do-it-yourself divorce. Again, I don't recommend those because even navigating that paperwork can slow down the process and cost you a lot of time and money. And if you're in a hurry to get a divorce, you'll particularly want to try to get a lawyer and get it done. Now, even though you have a lawyer, there are some states that allow you to get what they call what's a no fault, an uncontested divorce. And if that's truly what it is, and you can have a divorce by agreement. So if you and your soon-to-be ex can agree on everything, then you can go outside the boundaries of the court, file it within the court, and have the judge sign off on it. Now that gets even trickier because often I've had people come into my office, well, we've all agreed, we've sat down and we've all agreed except for. Well, it's that except for that's always the problem. So if you think you've agreed except for X, it could be the house, it could be the kids. You just can't agree on visitation. Or maybe you can't agree on child support or alimony. Whatever it is, if you just have one thing that's hanging you up, I promise you that's going to be the thing that's going to hang you up forever. And if you can't agree, if you and your soon-to-be ex can't agree on everything, then go get you a lawyer, because it's that one thing that is likely to drag this whole process on and on and on. And what I've found is that the goals of a divorce is to split the assets, to divide up the assets. Again, if we're looking at it in context of a business, we're looking at this as a small corporation. And so what we want to do, one of the goals is to divide up the assets, do it as efficiently as possible, and put yourself, both of you, in a position to where you can move on with your life. Divide your assets, protect yourself and your children, and then put yourself in a position to move on with your life. So again, you divide your assets, you do it as efficiently as possible, you want to protect yourself and your children, and you want to put yourself in a position to where you can move on with your life. You don't want anything hanging out. Once you have this divorce done, you want to be able to move on and don't want to have to revisit it. One of the worst damn things in the world is to have a process, think you've got a process completed and then you have to revisit it. Now, having said that, understand that if you've got kids, if you've got children, then you will have to revisit that, but only for that specific purpose of dealing with your children. And if everyone is of the same mind and everyone has the best interest of the children, then that process will be less cumbersome. And so there are a few things that you're going to have to revisit from time to time, but it shouldn't be every month you're going to your lawyer or you're needing to go to court to iron out a situation. Okay? That's not the way to do. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what the divorce process is like. So what do you do if you're thinking about getting a divorce? It's kind of like a bankruptcy to me, and I've had the privilege and honor of helping many people through the bankruptcy process and through the divorce process, and I've looked at them as they're similar situations in that the psychology of the individual that comes to me for a bankruptcy and that comes to me for a divorce has basically the same thing when they come into my office, and that is they have given this thing, the divorce or the bankruptcy, but we'll focus on divorce, but they have given that a lot of thought. They have given that a whole lot of thought. Many hours, many sleepless nights of figuring out how they're going to do this thing. So when they come in my office, they already know they're going to do it, and in a lot of cases they have suffered too long. That this is something they should have done a long time ago. But hope against hope, people think that things are going to get better, and generally not. If you sat around and hoped and wished that your spouse is going to change, and time has elapsed and a year's gone by, 2 years gone by, and they haven't changed, they're not going to change. No matter what they tell you, they're not going to change. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, and that's a fact. You can take that to the bank. That's just like the law of gravity. Now, you might not like it, you know. We don't like the laws of gravity, particularly when we fall and bust our ass. We don't like that law, but it's fact. So the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And if in the past your spouse isn't treating you right, maybe abusive, not spending their money right, wasting their money, not working, then they're not going to change, no matter how many times they tell you. So once you've made that decision, in your mind, once you've made that decision, and most people have, they've sat and stewed on it and they've made that decision. So once you've made that conscious decision that that's what you're going to do, and maybe you haven't told the other side, maybe that's something, of course you never know, that's something that they might be thinking about too, so you need to consider that. So if that's something you're thinking about doing, go to an attorney first. Go to an attorney and look at the landscape. Don't take my word for it, but just go to an attorney and talk about, say, listen, I'm thinking about getting a divorce. What are some things I should do? So any good lawyer is going to tell you to do a few things. So after you've talked to your lawyer and you've got some good solid advice, and by the way, that attorney doesn't have to be the one that does your case. In fact, there's a lot of attorneys that are good at telling you how to prepare but are shitty at doing the divorce. They drag it on, their caseload might be too large, they drag it on, and you can't get access to them, you can't talk to them. That's not the lawyer you want to handle your divorce. But now, that lawyer might be a good lawyer to tell you, kind of give you a general roadmap. So, rule of thumb, when you pick your lawyer, don't pick anybody that's not willing to give you their cell phone number. I know that sounds kind of out there. Heaven forbid that you chuck down $3,000 or more for an attorney, and then they, that you want their phone number, you want their contact information. And all the years I've practiced, going on 22 now. I've processed many divorces. I have always, from day one in a divorce situation, given the client that is paying me, I'm happy to take the money, and I'm happy to take the money, and I work my ass off for it. But I also believe it's my obligation and my duty to make myself accessible to that client. So I always give them my phone number. And what I have found, an odd thing, if you're an attorney out there listening, what I found is that most people don't abuse it. I've been doing this for 22 years as an attorney and counseling probably 20 more individuals before I was an attorney about this process. And I've always given people my cell phone number, my personal number. Before cell phones, I gave them my home number. And what I found is most people overwhelmingly don't abuse that privilege. They just don't. Now, I've had a few that I've had to set boundaries and used to tell them, say, listen, I don't want to have to put you on my friends and family plan. So let's do this. You don't call me after 7. You know, I have to set some boundaries. But most people are very courteous about that. They just are. So don't get an attorney that you cannot have access to. And you're going to know that in your community. You're going to know the reputation. So, you know, if the conversation is, well, I can never get hold of my attorney, don't get that attorney, because there are times when you're going to need to talk to somebody. Maybe you're not going to need to talk to them about the legal aspects of your case, but you just want to talk to them. Maybe you want to see how things are going, how it's progressing. So you'll want that contact. So get yourself a lawyer. Take a look at that. But before, you know, after you do that and you get that roadmap, so there's some things you're going to do. And a good lawyer will tell you this. Take account of know how much money everybody's making. Know how much money the household's making. Obviously, if you're working, you already know how much you're making. But the point is to know how much the spouse is making. Know what their assets are. Know where their property is. Know how much money they make. Get a check stub. Get the tax returns. Start collecting documents, because you're going to need those. You're going to need documents a lot of times for proof of income. You're going to need the tax returns. You're going to need to know their check stubs. If, again, now we're living in a digital world, so you're going to have to find a way to get a password to the bank account. Make sure you have access to or can get that information. You'll want to know what the retirement accounts are. You'll want to know where all the property is. You can get deeds. You can go to the courthouse and do a lot of this work on your own without the other party knowing. And it's not a bad thing to do that. It's protecting yourself and protecting the assets and protecting that which is yours. So if you've been married a long time, a lot of states you're entitled to 50. You're entitled to half. And God damn it, you got to take your half. I tell this to people all the time. And much in the same fashion, while we're talking about this, we talk a little bit about child support. It's not going to be about child support, but collecting money for child support calculations is dependent upon income. So you're going to want to know what the income is, so that way you don't cheat your child. I hear people all the time trying to bargain away their child's money, the child support money, in order to get rid of the damn divorce. Do not bargain away your child's money. It's theirs. It is theirs, and you have no right to bargain it away. When I see an agreed upon divorce, and I've done many of them, I've seen people try to take less in child support. And I caution against that very much, because it's the child's money and you're messing with their future. If you don't want to spend the damn money, take it, put it in the bank and save it for them. But you're entitled to spend it for them. So find out what the assets are. You're going to need that for your calculations for alimony and maintenance and child support. So you're just going to want to know that. You're going to know what the value of the property is. Go to the clerk's office or the property valuation administrator or whatever it is in the tax collector, whatever it is in your area, and look and see what your property's worth. Look and see what your house is worth. Take stock and inventory of the stuff in your house. Know what all that shit is worth, because you're going to need that, because when you go to sit down and you talk about your divorce, You pile up all your assets and you put them on a table. And then you take all your debt. Know your debt. Know your debt. You can't do anything unless you know the debt. Because otherwise you're shooting in the dark. Okay? And you don't want to have money coming to you through the divorce only to find out there's a hell of a lot of debt that you got to take care of. So know the debt. Know the debt. If you know the debt and you know the income, you're going to be in the ball game. So that way you'll be informed. And when you sit down and if there's a mediation, then you're going to know what all the cards are. You never want to go into a mediation without knowing what all the evidence is and what the cards are. You can't bargain that way. If you bargain without knowing what the rules are and what the evidence is, you're going to feel like hell afterwards. You're going to feel like you've been cheated. So you don't want to put yourself in a position to where at the end you've got some regret and you feel cheated. And you don't want to leave that divorce a year later saying, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. And then you're going to blame it on your damn attorney. Well, don't do that. Be informed and do you some work in the beginning, particularly if you're in one of those situations where you know it's going to happen. Now, we can talk later. Excuse me. We can talk later about we can talk later about what you do, if you don't know and you've been blindsided, and you're at home one afternoon and you fix dinner and the spouse comes home and they throw them damn papers at you and say, here, let's get a divorce, get your ass out of the house. That's a whole different issue. We'll talk about that later in another topic. But right now, do your groundwork. Know what the rules are. Know the insurance. Okay, it's important that you know how you're going to handle insurance, particularly if you've got children. How you're going to handle that. Look at the bank accounts. I think I said that with the taxes, but look at the bank account. A lot of people have these apps on their phone, and the apps, and you don't have the passwords. Try to find out how to get the passwords. And a lot of times, if you're in a household situation, it's not uncommon for two people, for both spouses to have separate accounts. You're going to want to have that information. That might be a little tricky to get, but over time, I'm sure you know your spouse, you've lived with them a while, that's something you can probably get. Because if you have to do it through the legal process, well, you're going to have to do it through the legal process anyway. The lawyers get together and they exchange that information. But it's always good to have that information in case the shit that the other lawyer tries to give you, when you look at it with your attorney, you can say, I know that's not right. Last month he had $20,000 in the bank. Here it is. Now he's saying he ain't got nothing in the bank. That's bullshit. So with that information, you're going to know you're going to know bullshit when you see it. And so gathering all of these documents will keep you from feeling like someone's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. And again, it makes you more informed. So know the assets, get the documents, know the debt. Try to get these passwords. Try to know the more documents, the more information that you can recover before you actually file, the better off you are. Now then you want to probably, at this point, after you've gathered everything, you'll want to kind of test the waters. Again, you know your spouse. You're going to want to approach them and let them know what you've got in mind. You're going to want them to know. Before you have that conversation, lock in a lawyer that you know is going to file the petition. Again, that might be a different lawyer that you went to for your, like we call it the recon. You're going to want to maybe get you a different lawyer. It could be the same lawyer. But don't feel bad if it's not the same lawyer. Many times lawyers will answer questions from people that won't turn into a client. I do it all the time. I give free advice on the phone all the time. Just real simple questions, or someone might be calling me even just to ask me what my prices are. And then little by little they're going to talk to you about what they want, and you kind of give them an idea about how you're going to do things or what you do in that particular case. So in a divorce, get you a lawyer before you talk to your spouse. Get ready to pull that trigger. And then when you talk to them, and then let them know that you've got an attorney. Now, once you do that, you can ask them, say, listen, my lawyer says he can work it out with both of us. He can represent me, but he can give you the petition, give you the complaint, give you the settlement papers, and let you go over it. It's not uncommon. I've prepared many a divorce settlement agreement for a client to have them go to their former soon-to-be ex-spouse and present it to them and have them sign off on it. And once they sign off on it, then me as the attorney can take it to, can get it prepared formally and then file it with all the necessary paperwork. So even, you can agree on anything. You can agree on children. You can agree, in most states, you can agree on child support. You can, now be careful about that, because if, again, with your lawyer will be able to advise you, but if you're doing this on your own, you're going to want to make sure if that child support agreement is too low, the judge is not going to approve it. Because again, that's the kid's money, that's your child's money. You don't want to short your child. So most anything can be agreed to. And so you will then talk to your spouse, try to get that hammered out as much as you can. Now, you're going to know instantly. If you believe they've cheated on you and all that, then odds are, if you're going to allege all that stuff and you all have been fighting and quarreling and arguing, and you know if you're going to be able to agree or not. So once you have that initial conversation, you kind of generally touch on some of those subjects. And if you can kind of tell if they bristle and stiffen their back and get angry and mad, then just leave. Don't get into a fight. Again, the goal of a divorce is to do this efficiently. And that's not efficient. If you're going to argue and fight and fuss, that can drag it on. And that complicates things. The more you argue, the more you're going to find other things to argue about, because everybody likes to nitpick. He picks at you, you pick at them, she picks at you, you pick at her. So that's not a good place either. You will know instantly if you can agree. If you can agree, then sit down, try to hammer it out and take it to your lawyer. And I always try to tell my client, let them know this is going to save them some money. Because if they have to formally get their own lawyer, then that's going to cost them some money. But even at that point, as a lawyer, I always advise my client to tell them to take it to a lawyer to have them look at it. That doesn't mean the other lawyers involved. Some lawyers won't do that because they want more money. But I've looked at many a divorce settlement agreement for someone that come in the door. I might charge them $50 to look at it. And if it looks reasonable and doesn't look out of line, I'll just tell them, yeah, go ahead and sign it if that's something you want to do. But it is their agreement. And once you sign that agreement, it's yours. And it's hard to get out of it. So you want to be very careful that it includes everything. Visitation, look at the visitation schedule. So there's a lot to this. You're dividing up your assets. You're looking at the debt. You'll want to look at, in that petition, you're going to look at alimony. Some states make you qualify. There's certain things that you have to do in your relationship to qualify for alimony, qualify for maintenance. How long is it going to take you to kind of get back up to speed after you've been married? Maintenance is another issue. And child support and visitation. All of those things are the big top issues when you're talking about a divorce. So you'll want to hammer those out. And if you can hammer them out before before you go to court and you can agree on them, it just makes it a hell of a lot easier. In a lot of states, you can get divorced in 30 days from the date you file if everything's agreed upon and there's no problems. But if it turns into a big battle over the Tupperware and over the TV, I had a case where people argued for almost a year over some collectible Hot Wheels set. It's probably worth about $7 or $8 grand, but they argued like hell over those things. And I've seen people argue over pictures. So one of the other things that you're going to want to do is before, and I mentioned this, I didn't mention this, but before you go to that lawyer, and this is important, is the things that you truly hold dear, and there should only be a few of them, the things that you truly hold dear, pictures, maybe a deed or some really important papers. Well, deeds you can get at the clerk's office, but pictures and keepsakes and things of that nature, particular articles of clothing, maybe some tools, or maybe a collection, a coin collection. Some of those things that you know are yours and you can prove are yours, take them. Get them and take them beforehand. Take them, because I have seen people, it gets nasty in a divorce. I've seen people destroy and burn and tear up and hide other things of the other party just out of spite. That's no way to be, but that happens. So you'll want to take just those things and put them under lock and key and know where they are. Know where they are. If it's a picture of you and your mother, or you or your granny, or some pictures of your kids that you want to keep, get that stuff. Get it beforehand. Odds are the other spouse ain't even going to know they're gone. They ain't even going to know they're missing. Most of the time that happens. So get that stuff beforehand, like you do your records. When you're gathering your records and your documents, take some of those keepsakes that you know you want, that you're afraid might get destroyed. Because if you have to leave the home, who knows? If you're the one that leaves the home and you're leaving behind all that stuff to go back and try to get it later, it's probably not going to work out for you, to be honest. So try to get that stuff beforehand. So after you've done that and you've gotten your documents and you go to your lawyer, then it's just the process. Let that legal process take its course. It's a process. Your attorney will guide you through that. Once you've hired a lawyer, if you trust, first off, you should never hire a lawyer you don't trust. Never hire an attorney you don't trust. If you trust them, let them do their damn job. Let them do their job. Obviously, they've probably been around. They know what they're doing, or obviously you wouldn't have hired them. So let them do their damn job. Let the process go. Let it take place. Most lawyers, if they need you to sign something, if they need information from you, they will send it to you in a letter or in an email. They'll let you know they've got these questions they need answered. And they'll send you a pile of questions, and you sit down at the table and you answer them. They're going to need some documents. Get the damn documents and get it to them. The more, that's what I said, the more you're organized beforehand, it'll make your job and it'll make your lawyer's job a whole lot easier. And then that process will be so much more efficient. You won't waste any time, and when you waste time, you're wasting money. Every time you have to go to that damn lawyer's office, you're going to miss work. And that's not good. Or your kids are going to miss school. That's not good. So the more organized you are on the front end, the better off it is on the back end when you talk to your lawyer. So let that process percolate. Stay off of your damn social media. Social media will get you in more trouble during a divorce than anything you could do. Don't engage in it. Don't listen to the noise, the background noise, because when you get a divorce, the families break up into camps. I don't care how much you love the in-law. I don't care how good they've treated you in the past. When you file for divorce, they will be your enemy. They will not be your friend. Any interaction, or I won't say it any, but most any interaction you have with that other party will only be for the purpose of them to collect data on you, for them to get a story or a tale. And you don't want to do that. You want to avoid that. So once you pull that trigger, be wary. Be wary of the contact you have with the other side. Cut the Facebook out. Get rid of the noise. Once you've pulled that trigger and you filed the petition, that process is in motion, and let it go. Don't interfere with it, and don't allow other people to fill your head full of horse shit. You'll have people talk to you and question your lawyer. Question the process. Question, well, you should do this or you should. Don't pay attention to that. Don't let someone armchair quarterback your process. Don't let them hijack your process. It's important that you do that. Keep all that noise because the most noise you're going to get from your family and friends. These are people that love you. But a lot of times they can be imposing and interfere and fill your head full of shit that you don't need in there, okay? Happens a lot. So if you really have a question, or really someone tells you something that strikes something in there and you want to get clarification, ask your lawyer. Don't ask another lawyer. It's a big mistake. Don't hire a lawyer and then go to another lawyer and as an attempt to second guess the lawyer that you got. That's bad. Pardon me. And if your lawyer gets hold of that information and knows that you've been trying to check up on them, they're not going to like it either. I assume that someone comes into my door as an attorney, that they have researched me, they know my reputation, and they know how I do work, and that they trust me. I assume that. And when I hear that they're going to other sources for verification, I don't like that at all. I want my clients to trust me. I want them to ask questions. Now, someone asking me a question doesn't mean they don't trust me. It could mean mostly that. It could mean mostly, simply, that I didn't make myself clear in the first place. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with that. Ask questions. If you have a question, you should ask your lawyer. But don't go to another lawyer to verify what your lawyer said. That's not good, because then, you're not, the lawyer you've asked outside of the one you hired don't have all the information. And a lot of times lawyers will pop off and give you some kind of quick answer without having all the information. And that could be bad for you, because the answer they give, you're measuring it against what your attorney has given you. But your attorney, the difference is your lawyer has sat down with you. They've looked at the papers. They know what the other side has. They know the facts. This lawyer, this second-hand lawyer you're taking, doesn't know all the facts. So don't do that. If you have a legitimate, genuine question that's bothering you, ask your attorney. Now, I give my clients my cell phone. I said, text me. Text them a question. You don't want to text them a book, because I understand they've got other clients. Text them a short question. I do that routinely. Routinely. I'll take text questions from clients. Okay? It doesn't bother me at all, and I don't bill for it. I figure I'll get my money up front, and then that's going to include all that shit. Unless, of course, it gets to, again, if I have to set boundaries, and, I have had to charge clients after asking them to be mindful of boundaries, and they don't, then I've had to resort to billing by the hour. I don't like to do that. It's just more work for me. So text a question. Don't go off and ask, don't ask Aunt Joe. Don't ask your sister that just got a divorce last year. Don't ask your cousin, because, again, their facts are different. Their facts are different. And law is one of those weird things. We've got the law there. We've got this divorce process. But within that process, the outcome is dependent upon so many facts. So if you've educated yourself and you've done all of that, then at the end, the chances of you feeling like you've been screwed, I don't know how many times I've heard that. I got screwed, or I got effed. I got f***ed. That's what happened. I got screwed. My lawyer screwed me. My lawyer screwed me because I didn't get what I wanted. Well, first off, you're not going to get what you want. You might get what you need. Probably not going to get what you want. A good divorce, a good settlement is one where both parties leave a little ding, like ink. That stung a little bit, but I got most of what I wanted. And that's what you want in a good settlement or in a good divorce. You want to get most of what you want. You're not going to get it all. If you think you're going to get it all, you're going to be pissed off. And you're going to be mad. And at the end, you are going to feel like you got screwed. So you're going to hopefully get what you need. And you can only do that if you have all of the information. So, and a lot of courts use something like a mediation. If you can't come to an agreement, then the next phase is a mediation. Still, we've got both parties have all the facts, they've got all the information, and they sit down with a middleman, And they split you up into a room and they go back and forth until you've whittled down the issues, until you've eventually agreed on a solution. Mediation is a wonderful tool. In a lot of states, particularly Kentucky, one that I practice in West Virginia, Kentucky allows for a mediated divorce. A lot of times you don't even have to go to a lawyer if you go to a mediator. You go to a mediator, and a mediator can sit down and help you hammer out a divorce, no matter how complicated. And they can put together a settlement agreement, and they can file it with the court, and no one ever has to go to court. A lot of times that's a lot more inexpensive way and efficient way to do your divorce. But now you can't do that if you're at everybody's throat. Mediation never works that way. Now, it's okay to be a little pissed off when you go into mediation, because usually you are. You don't like it. Your ass is raw because you've been dragged through this process. Everybody knows your shit. You don't like it. So you're sitting down in the goddamn room and you're seeing your whole damn life, sometimes 20 and 30 years of the shit you've worked for, half of it goes away. Ain't nobody like that. Nobody likes it. It is uncomfortable, so understand that. Okay, so that's the mediation. If you can't agree and you've worked at it, then a court usually will order a mediation. But even before you file the paper, you can do a mediation. Know that. If your state is one that allows mediation, I might encourage you to go the mediation route first. Me and my business partner and law partner was certified in family court mediation several years ago. We've done several of those. And so mediation is one of the things that you could look into. So now, that's kind of the process. And then after you have your mediation, your divorce is final and everything, and you get your, you divide up all the property, and all of that process is a whole thing all by itself. Once you've done all that, the judge issues a ruling. The judge may issue a ruling if you have a trial. If you can't agree, and you can't agree at mediation, then the next step is a trial. And a judge will figure out the damn thing for you. And most judges will say, you can figure it out yourself or let me do it. And I promise you, you won't like it if I do it. I've heard so many judges say that, and that's the truth. You sit down there in that courtroom, there is nobody leaving that damn courtroom happy. So, and most judges pride themselves on that because they think they've done a good job. If everybody leaves pissed off, they think they've done a good job because no one feels screwed. They both feel screwed. So, and that's uncomfortable. So it doesn't need to be that way. So that is kind of the whole process in a nutshell. So after you've got your agreement, then life should go on. If it's a good agreement and solid, then life should go on. So understand all of this. The one thing that you need to understand in the whole process is you can't predict the future. You've got to be willing to flow with it. Things are going to happen. Like I said, the agreement is going to be good, but you can't predict the bad stuff. If there are things that happen, go back to your lawyer. Now, he may charge you. You know, the divorce generally is the end of the matter. Once you get your settlement and you get your divorce decree and you get your name back, if that's what you asked for, and all the property's divided, then there is nothing else. And so when you go back to your lawyer, they're probably going to charge you. So understand that too and be prepared for that. And that's only fair. But that doesn't, I'm not telling you that as a way for you to suffer through mistreatment of someone that's not holding to the agreement, because people don't. There's a lot of people that don't do that. They don't hold to that agreement. Especially when it comes to the paying of the debt. You know, if your spouse is supposed to pay the house payment or the car payment or keep up the insurance and they don't, then you're going to have to go to court for that. You're going to have to go to court and have the judge make the person do it. So that's the only relief you have. So don't hesitate to do it, but understand that agreement is just on paper, and you have to enforce it. And most of the time it works. I would say 75% of the time it works flawlessly, and there's another percentage of time that we have to keep tweaking it. So you've got that divorce. Clean up your Facebook. I should have said that before. Clean up your Facebook. That's an important part of this. You don't clean. You don't want your damn Facebook all hanging out there with people that you're seeing and the drinks in your hand and all that. Even though if you're not if you're not filing for divorce on fault, it just still looks bad, and a lot of people will find a way to use that in your divorce, and that's not good. They'll use it a way to leverage to work you down on some money. You don't want to do that either. So clean up your Facebook, and that kind of goes with getting rid of the noise. Just get rid of all that shit. You don't need it. It's not good for you during this time. Now afterwards, then you can resume your life as you were before. But during the pendency of this divorce process, kind of clean that up. Get rid of all that background noise, because it's going to be rough on you. And there are times, and I'll tell this, in addition to getting a lawyer, find yourself a therapist. You're going to need that. You're going to need someone to talk to. If you feel like you're at your wit's end, because your lawyer's not a counselor. In fact, most lawyers hate that part of being they're called counselors, but they're not. They're legal counselors. They're not social workers, and they don't like being social workers. I, on the other hand, I have a master's degree in counseling and psychology. I'm also an attorney, so I understand. Never more do you see the mix of life and law than you see in a divorce. I'm going to say it again. Never more. There is never a more clear merging of life and law than through a divorce. Because when you have a divorce, it entangles both of those, life and law. And so it's a tough thing. So get you a therapist. Get you somebody that you can talk to personally about your personal stuff. Get you a therapist. Because your lawyer's not going to have time for it. And they're not, to be honest, they're not going to want to do it. They're not trained in it. They don't like it. So you may have to get you a therapist. One of the other pieces of information, and this comes off as a joke, but find your goddamn goddamn spouse, your ex-spouse. Find them a boyfriend or a girlfriend. That's the best thing you can do for yourself. If you've got a friend, hook them up. If you've got a friend, hook them up with your ex. That'll take a lot of the pressure off of you. They won't be digging in your shit near as much as if they have another relationship. So do what you can do on the side, to find them a mate. That'll help you a whole lot. I say it as a joke, but it's no joke. If their time is occupied and they have other things to focus on, they will not be focusing on you. So find them a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Find them a mate. It'll help you out a lot. So lastly, we're going to mention this. We went through the legal process, but again, this is the life part of a divorce. We talked about the law, so we're going to talk about the life part of a divorce. It's a practical matter. The divorce is a loss. You're losing something. You're losing a part of your life. You're losing a routine. You're losing something that, even though you hated it, people often, even in bad situations, that routine is something that they were familiar with. And then it gave them some comfort. They were comfortable in the agony, but nonetheless, they were at some level comfort, and it was predictable. So when you get that divorce and you no longer have that thing, you're going to feel some sense of loss. So bear in mind, there's kind of a process to this, and we go through, and it's clearly defined. It's kind of like the stages of death. You have denial first. When someone hits you with that news that they're getting a divorce, it's denial. You're going to like, no, what the hell? Why? I'm just not going to. I'm not going to accept this. This is nuts. Where did this come from? Because a lot of times it's coming straight out of left field. But a lot of times maybe you've thought about it, but you're still in denial. Once the finality of that, someone pulls that trigger and tells you they no longer want to be with you. It's personal. And you're going to have denial. And then you're going to go from denial to anger. You're going to be mad. You're going to be pissed off. Maybe you found out they got a honey on the side. and you ain't liking that. And then you're gonna get mad at that old bitch, or you're gonna get mad at that bastard. You're gonna get mad at, you're gonna find somebody else to lash out at. You're gonna be angry. Then you're gonna go into a bargaining phase. You're going to bargain. You're going to start bargaining. Oh, please take me back. That take me back. I'll never do this. And, you know, I'll be better. I'll do better. And you're going to try to bargain. Or what can I do? You might be the one that says, what can I do to get back? What can I do to fix this? You're going to bargain. So there's going to be a period of bargaining going on. At least if not to them in your brain. You're going to think, there's things you're going to think, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to get back into good graces? And then after you've done bargain, you're going to hit a depression. You're going to be sad because you see it coming. You see the end coming. You've bargained, you've been angry, you see it, and it becomes inevitable. So then you hit a depression. Once you realize in your head that this is happening, it's real, this is happening. Once you reach that conclusion, you go into a depression. And that's where you're going to need a therapist, okay? Depression is one of those things you're going to have to work through because you're not the only one. That's what you got to understand. It's a process. Millions of people go through it every year, you know, with the statistically, I think 54, a little more than half of the marriages end in divorce. So what you're going through is not new. There is a process to it, and people feel just as shitty as you do. They're depressed. Sometimes they're without income. Sometimes they're not getting to see their kids as often as they were. That's depressing. You've got a right to be aggravated and depressed, but don't let it linger. Because that gets in the way. If you're depressed post-divorce, if depression hangs on, you can't move on with your life. And again, one of the goals of a divorce is to put yourself in a position to where you can have a normal life. Understand you've lost something, but you've got to find a way to pick yourself up and tend to your kids. You've got to find a way to go to work. Don't take your divorce to work. You'll lose your job. That's not good. Don't take your divorce around all of your family members. Don't take it to Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas or Easter. Your family doesn't want to hear it all the time. They don't. So you've got to find a way to compartmentalize that, deal with it, and move on. Because that's what life is all about. Life is about having bad shit happen, and then you move on. Deal with it, find a way to make it work out in your head, and move on. Do that, especially if you've got children. You must do that. Because you can't take care of your children if you're still fuming and depressed about the past. Okay? Then from the depression, you have acceptance. You accept it. Once you reach that section where you have totally accepted this whole process and what has happened to you, then you can move on. And that's hard to do. It's hard to be absolutely, totally acceptance of this thing. Because again, you've experienced a great loss, but you've got to move on. So, hopefully, you can rewatch this if there's a lot of information. But we're going to talk a little bit more later on. And we'll talk about custody and assets and debt and how that affects a divorce. Until next time, I'm going to let my father take me out of here on my good old tune. Turn me around and help me to the door. So until next time, thank you.
Turn me around, help me to the door. I'll never make it on my own. Turn me around, help me to the